I didn't win $200 million by chance. I won it because I refused to stop believing my story wasn't over.
Under the scorching afternoon sun, the Stone estate echoed with shouting. Garrett Stone stood at the top of the marble stairs, his voice booming so loud even the neighbors froze at their gates. "Take your things and get out, Skye," he barked. "You and those kids are nothing but dead weight." His mother, Evelyn, folded her arms, lips curling in disgust. "You heard my son. We don't need liabilities in this family. You've embarrassed us enough." Skye clutched her two children, Lily and Sam, trembling, their small backpacks hanging off their shoulders. Her eyes, glassy but defiant, met Garrett's. "All I ever did was love you, help you build everything you have," she whispered. But Garrett's laughter cut through the silence like a blade. "Everything I have? You mean everything I built in spite of you? Go live like the poor woman you were before I saved you." Evelyn yanked open the heavy gate, tossing Skye's suitcase onto the street. The thud echoed like a verdict. The children began to cry. Skye straightened slowly, her face pale, yet composed. She turned toward the sky, as if asking it for a witness, then said quietly, "Someday you'll regret the way you threw us out." Garrett scoffed, slamming the gate shut. Dust rose around them as the family car rolled past, splashing mud on her dress. But behind those tear-stained eyes, something unbroken remained, a spark that even betrayal couldn't kill. That night, in a dim basement apartment miles away, Skye folded a small piece of paper, a lottery ticket she bought with her last dollar. She whispered, "Maybe tomorrow will be different." And tomorrow was different, because 1 year after her husband and his family kicked her and her kids out, she won $200 million. But the real question is, what happens when the woman they called worthless becomes the richest one of them all? This is the story of how a husband and family kicked his wife and her kids out. 1 year later, she won $200 million. Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we begin, please click subscribe. Every single click helps us tell stories of courage and truth. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because when we share these stories together, we remind each other that even in pain, we can rise. The Stone estate glittered beneath the afternoon sun, its white marble steps gleaming like ice, beautiful, cold, and merciless. Skye Stone stood on those very steps, clutching a single suitcase and her two children, while her husband, Garrett, paced in front of her like a man possessed. "You've drained me, Skye," Garrett shouted, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "My company is collapsing, and you still want sympathy." Skye's breath hitched. "Garrett, please, I sold my inheritance to help you pay your investors." "Enough." His voice cracked like a whip. "You call that help? You cursed everything you touch." At the top of the stairs, Evelyn Stone, Garrett's mother, stood with her arms folded, her diamond earrings flashing in the sunlight. "I told you from the start," she sneered. "A woman like her will only drag you down. Look at her. No class, no ambition. She's just a burden." Skye's daughter, Lily, clung to her leg, whispering through tears, "Mommy, let's go home." Skye knelt, brushing her daughter's hair gently. "We are home, baby." Evelyn's laughter sliced through her words. "Not anymore." She gestured toward the security guards. "Get them out, all of them." The guards hesitated. They'd known Skye for years, but Garrett's glare made them move. One reached for the suitcase. Skye grabbed it first, trembling. "You don't have to do this, Garrett. The children." Garrett's face hardened. "I do have to do this. My investors want confidence, not pity. You're bad luck, Skye. I can't carry you anymore." For a moment, the world stilled. The wind died. Even the children stopped crying, as if the words themselves carried weight enough to crush air. Skye straightened slowly, her eyes filling but never breaking. "Bad luck," she whispered. "When your company was nothing but debt, who stayed up at night sending proposals for you? Who made your meals when you worked through Christmas? Who stood by you when everyone else left?" Garrett's jaw twitched, but he didn't answer. Pride wouldn't let him. Evelyn's voice cut in sharply. "Enough of this drama." She had her chance. Let's not waste daylight on failure. Stop. The mansion door swung open. Standing there in Skye's silk robe was Felicity Shaw, Garrett's secretary. Her hair was perfect, her smirk worse. "Should I bring the champagne, Garrett, or are we still entertaining?" Skye's stomach twisted. "You." Garrett looked away. "Don't make this harder than it already is." A low, strangled laugh escaped Skye. "You threw away 10 years of marriage for this?" Felicity raised an eyebrow. "For success, darling. Something you clearly don't understand." Skye's son, Sam, started to cry. His tiny voice echoed. "Daddy, please don't make Mommy cry." Garrett's eyes flickered just for a heartbeat, but Evelyn's hand on his shoulder steadied him back into cruelty. "This is for the best," she murmured. The gate opened with a groan. Skye stepped backward, holding both children close. The sunlight hit her face, tears shining like glass. Yet her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm. "One day you'll remember this moment, Garrett, and you'll wish you'd never opened that gate," Garrett scoffed. "You'll never be anything without me." Then, without looking back, he turned and slammed the door. The echo lingered like thunder in her chest. Skye stood motionless on the sidewalk as the mansion gates closed. Her children cried quietly beside her. Her suitcase, her dignity, her life, all of it now on the other side of that wall. And yet, as the afternoon light faded into gold, she looked down at her trembling hands and whispered, "Maybe this is where it begins." Camera pans out, the mansion shrinking behind her, her figure walking slowly into the sun. The wind carries a torn newspaper page past her feet. Headline: "Lottery Jackpot hits 200 million. Still no winner." Skye bends down, picks it up, and stares. Her lips tremble, not in fear this time, but in quiet defiance. The night swallowed the city whole. Neon lights blinked above the empty streets as Skye Bennett trudged forward, clutching her daughter's hand in one palm and her son's tiny backpack in the other. Her heels were broken, her clothes, her voice cracked on the last word. They passed store windows glowing with warm light, families eating dinner, laughter spilling through open curtains. Each sound stabbed deeper than the cold. Sam tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, my tummy's singing again." Skye crouched down, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "I know, baby. Mommy will fix it soon." She opened her purse, 3 crumpled dollar bills, 1 hairpin, and a folded photo of her wedding day. She closed it quickly. The sound of her husband's laughter echoed in memory. A younger Skye danced barefoot in that same white blouse while Garrett watched, smiling. "You and me, Skye," he'd said. "Then no matter what happens, we build together." She'd believed him. Now that same promise felt like a cruel joke written in dust. As rain began to fall, Skye spotted a dim sign. "Martha's boarding weekly rent. No questions asked." She hesitated at the door, but Martha Lane, a round woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a kind smile, appeared holding a towel. "You look like you need a roof, honey. Come in." Skye blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. Martha stepped aside. "You and those little men? Money or family? Skye smiled weakly. All three. Martha didn't press. She just patted Skye's shoulder and said, "Rent's $40 a week, but tonight's on me." Later that night, Skye sat alone by the window, watching the rain trace crooked paths down the glass. She whispered to herself, "I'll rebuild somehow." Her gaze drifted to a small corkboard near the door, covered with neighborhood flyers. Between job postings and missing pet notes, one paper stood out, bright orange, slightly torn. "Hope lives here. Weekly lottery tickets sold at Stella's Diner." Someone had scribbled in pen beneath it, "Dreams only cost $1." Skye stared at it for a long moment. The words hit deeper than they should have. "Hope lives here," she murmured. She didn't believe in luck anymore, but something in those words tugged at her like a whisper she couldn't ignore. Sunlight filtered through the dirty curtains. Skye woke to the sound of her kids giggling. For the first time in days, they smiled. Sam pointed at a dusty plant by the window. "Look, Mommy, it's trying to grow." Skye smiled faintly. "So are we." She looked at the clock, already 7:40. She'd promised Martha she'd find work. She grabbed her bag and kissed both children. "I'll be back before the sun goes down." As she opened the door to leave, she paused, eyes lingering again on that orange flyer. She took it down quietly, folded it, and slipped it into her purse. Outside, she passed a newspaper stand. The headline read, "Local business mogul expands empire. Garrett Stone partners with Shaw Enterprises." Skye froze, her hand tightening around the orange flyer in her bag. Her expression hardened, pain fading into something colder, sharper. Narrator's voice softens. "Sometimes rock bottom isn't the end. It's the floor beneath a door no one ever thought you'd open." The Stone estate had never looked brighter. Golden lights spilled across the grand dining hall, catching every crystal and diamond like a promise of perfection. But beneath the glow, it reeked of something uglier, arrogance disguised as victory. Felicity Shaw, now Mrs. Stone, in everything but name, glided down the marble staircase, wearing one of Skye's old silk robes, the one Garrett once said made his wife look like a goddess. Now it hugged Felicity's frame as she smiled into her reflection in the hallway mirror. "Fits perfectly," she whispered, smirking. "Guess some things were just meant for me." Downstairs, Evelyn Stone supervised a line of servers setting champagne glasses. "Everything must be flawless," she snapped. "Tonight, we toast to a new beginning." Garrett, in a crisp navy suit, stood by the fireplace, rehearsing his charm. "Our investors will be here any minute," he said. "We need them to see that I've moved on, stronger, sharper, richer." Evelyn smiled proudly. "You made the right choice, son. That woman was a stain on this family name." The word "that woman," Skye, hung in the air, but no one dared to speak it aloud. Cameras flash. Laughter fills the room. The Stones are back in the papers. The perfect picture of luxury reborn. Felicity clinks her glass. "To second chances," she purrs. Garrett raises his. "To winning again." Their glasses meet with a soft chime, hollow and cruel. In the background, one of the maids sets a box on the counter, the last of Skye's belongings that had been found in the attic. Inside, a few photo frames, a broken necklace, and a small jewelry box tied with a faded blue ribbon. Felicity's curiosity flickers. She waits until the guests drift toward the terrace, then quietly opens the box. Inside lies a letter sealed with wax. The handwriting elegant, neat, and unmistakably old-fashioned. "To Skye Stone, confidential." Felicity frowns. Confidential. She unfolds it just enough to see the letterhead. Weston Legal Affairs, A flash of unease crosses her eyes. Before she can read more, Evelyn walks in. "Felicity, what are you doing?" Felicity startles, then laughs lightly. "Just cleaning up Skye's leftovers." Evelyn eyes the paper suspiciously. "Nothing in that box matters anymore. Burn it." Felicity hesitates. Evelyn's tone sharpens. "I said burn it." Felicity forces a smile. "Of course." In the garden, Garrett's laughter echoes as guests toast to his resilience. But under the soft glow of the lanterns, his eyes aren't celebrating. They're haunted. A waiter whispers to another. He doesn't even look happy, because deep down, Garrett knows the truth. He doesn't miss Skye's face. He misses her steadiness, her quiet wisdom, her ability to calm storms. Felicity gives him thrill, not peace. Still, pride is louder than conscience. He turns to Felicity and whispers, "Tonight marks the real beginning." Felicity leans close, her perfume sharp. "Then let's make sure she never comes back to ruin it." The mansion empties. Music fades. Felicity steps outside with a matchbox. She holds the sealed letter over a bronze bowl and watches it burn slow, deliberate. But for a moment, just before the flame consumes it, her eyes catch a few words in the smoke's glow. Upon reaching the age of 32, all remaining assets from the Harper estate shall pass directly to Skye Bennett. Her heartbeat spikes. What? The flame licks higher, erasing the rest. She tosses the ashes into the night wind. Shaken, Garrett's voice calls from inside. "Felicity, come to bed." She takes one last look at the glowing ashes, whispering to herself, "If that's real, she'll never find out." She steps back into the light. Smile perfect again. The wind carries the last ember of the burned letter over the wall, drifting into the street below, landing just every click, every share, every comment helps us keep telling stories that give strength to women and children who've been broken, forgotten, or silenced. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a channel, you're standing beside survivors, saying their stories matter. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss a The next morning crept in slowly, gray lights slipping through the thin curtains of the tiny basement room. Skye Bennett sat at the edge of her bed, staring at her hands. They were calloused now, the hands of a woman who scrubbed floors, not signed contracts. She had started working at a nearby diner 2 weeks earlier. The pay barely covered food, but it kept her children fed, and that was enough for now. From the kitchenette came soft giggles. Lily and Sam sat on the floor stacking old soup cans like building blocks. Just as she opened the door, Martha Lane, her landlady, appeared holding a letter. "Mail for you, sweetheart," Martha said. "Came early this morning." Skye frowned. "For me? Who even knows where I live?" The envelope was old, cream-colored, sealed with a wax emblem that looked faintly like a crest. The sender read, "Weston Legal Affairs." Skye's heart skipped. She tore it open. Inside was a short, neatly folded note. "Dear Mrs. Stone, I was your late father's attorney and close friend. There are matters regarding his estate that require your immediate attention. Please visit my office tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Yours sincerely, Mr. Arthur Weston." Skye's fingers trembled. Her father, she hadn't heard that name in years. A young Skye sitting in her father's study, watching him scribble numbers in a small black notebook. He used to say, "You'll understand these numbers one day, Skye. They're not about luck. They're about legacy." Her chest tightened at the memory. She had been 20 when he died. They'd said his business went bankrupt. That night, she confided in Chloe Hall, her best friend and coworker. Chloe, wiping the counter, looked skeptical. "A lawyer from your dad after all these years?" "I know it sounds strange," Skye said, But I can't ignore it. Ivy, it's something. Chloe smiled faintly. Honey, you've earned a miracle or two. Then jokingly, she added, maybe it's a treasure map. Skye laughed, a sound she hadn't made in months. If it is, I hope it leads somewhere warm. That night, Skye tucked her children into bed. The little basement room felt less like a cell and more like a shelter, now a pause between storms. She sat by the window, holding the letter under the moonlight. If you really left something, Dad, please, let it be enough to start over. The camera lingers on her face, a mix of fear, exhaustion, and fragile courage. Then a soft sound interrupts the quiet. A thud outside the door. Skye stands, heart racing. She opens it cautiously. No one is there. Just a folded piece of paper slipped under the mat. Her breath catches as she unfolds it. Be careful who you trust. Not everything your father owned was lost. No signature, no address, just those words. Neat, precise, deliberate. Skye looks out into the empty street, scanning the shadows. The orange "Hope Lives Here" flyer flutters on the wall behind her, illuminated by a single streetlight. While her enemies celebrated her fall, someone else had already started lighting her path back up. Fade to black. The next morning felt different. The same sun that once mocked Skye Bennett's misery now painted her in gold. Her hands trembled as she buttoned her blouse, the nicest one she owned, and tucked the mysterious letter from Mr. Weston into her purse. Lily stirred under the blanket. Mommy, are you going to work? Skye knelt beside her daughter and kissed her forehead. Not today, baby. Mommy has something important to do. Sam, still half asleep, mumbled, Will you bring pancakes? Skye smiled. If everything goes well, I'll bring a whole stack. The camera lingers on her children. 2 small reasons, and she refused to give up before cutting to the bus ride across the city. Outside, the world blurred past the window. Suits rushing, horns blaring, people living lives she used to have. Skye clutched the letter tighter. What could my father have possibly left after all these years? The law office stood at the corner of Main Street, an old brick building with ivy crawling up its walls. Inside, the scent of paper and polished wood filled the air. Behind a mahogany desk sat Mr. Arthur Weston, silver-haired and warm-eyed, his voice gentle but firm. Mrs. Stone, he greeted, standing to shake her hand. You look so much like your father did the day he signed the Harper Trust. Skye froze. The what? He motioned for her to sit. You were very young then. Your father, Adam Harper, left behind partial ownership in a mining company. The shares were held in escrow until you turned 32, your current age. Skye blinked. That can't be right. We were broke when he died. The house, the business, everything was gone. Weston nodded. That's what everyone thought. But your father had a private investment, 10% equity in Redwood Mining. The company was sold last year for $15 million. Your portion after taxes and legal fees comes to about $1.5 million. Her breath caught. The words didn't even sound real. Are you saying I have money? He smiled. More than that, Mrs. Stone. You have security. You'll need to sign a few documents to release the funds. It will take a few weeks to process. Skye pressed a trembling hand to her chest. I don't even know what to say. Your father knew you'd find your way here when the time was right, Weston said softly. He told me once, my daughter doesn't need saving. She needs time to remember she's a Harper. Tears welled in Skye's eyes as she whispered, He always believed in me, even when I didn't. A soft flashback flickers, a 10-year-old Skye in her father's office, sitting on his lap as he showed her blueprints and said, One day you'll build something bigger than I ever could. Back in the present, Skye laughs through her tears. Maybe he was right. Mr. Weston handed her a small envelope. He also left this for you. Said to open it only when you feel you've lost everything. Skye stared at it, her breath uneven. Then I guess this is that time. As she stood to leave, Weston's assistant turned on the office TV. A headline scrolled across the bottom. Lottery jackpot rises to $200 million. Record drawing this weekend. Weston chuckled lightly. Seems luck is in the air these days. Skye smiled faintly. Maybe it's something more than luck. She stepped outside, wind lifting her hair as sunlight hit her face. For the first time in a long while, the world didn't look cruel. It looked possible. She opened her purse, pulling out the orange Hope Lives Here flyer she'd taken from Martha's board. She folded it next to the sealed envelope from her father. Two symbols of destiny crossing paths. As she walks away, the camera pans up to reveal a black sedan parked across the street. Inside, Felicity Shaw lowers her sunglasses, watching Skye with a calculating stare. She whispers into her phone. Garrett, you're not going to believe who's still standing. She thought she'd found closure, but the truth waiting inside that sealed envelope would set fire to everything again, including the lives of those who burned her. The Stone estate glimmered again, laughter, clinking glasses, and the sound of success echoing through the same halls where Skye Bennett once cried. Gold chandeliers shimmered above a crowd of executives, influencers, and gossip-hungry socialites. Tonight wasn't just a party. It was Garrett Stone's. Evelyn Stone beamed proudly beside him, her diamond necklace catching the light. And to Felicity, Garrett added, wrapping his arm around his secretary-turned-mistress, for believing in me when no one else did. Felicity's laugh was honeyed and dangerous. Oh, Garrett, you make it sound like a fairy tale. Across the hall, photographers snapped photos. Garrett Stone, the man who rose from ruin. No one mentioned how he fell. No one whispered the name Skye. As the guests mingled, Evelyn leaned toward Felicity. He looks happier, don't you think? Felicity swirled her champagne. He looks relieved, but happiness? That's expensive. Evelyn chuckled, mistaking venom for charm. A woman like you will never have to worry about that. But Felicity's eyes flicked toward Garrett, the man she'd fought to win, and saw something that unsettled her. Emptiness. Garrett's smile didn't reach his eyes. Even surrounded by luxury, his gaze wandered to the grand staircase, the one Skye had once descended, children in tow, begging him to listen. He turned sharply, almost shaking off the thought. Refill, he said to no one in particular. At that same moment, Skye across town sat on the edge of a diner stool, her uniform still damp from dishwater. The TV above the counter flickered with news coverage of Garrett's event. Reporter. While former spouse Skye Bennett has not been seen publicly since their divorce, sources say she's been living quietly with her 2 children. Skye exhaled shakily. Quietly, they make it sound like I died. Chloe rested a hand on hers. He thinks the story's over, Skye. Prove him wrong. Skye forced a smile. Oh, I intend to. Her gaze drifted upward. The same screen now flashing a lottery commercial. Saturday's jackpot. $200 million. One ticket could change everything. She stared at it longer than she meant to. A spark, faint but real, lit behind her eyes. Garrett clinked glasses again. To success, to loyalty, and to the future. As the guests cheered, a small hush fell near the fireplace. One of Garrett's old business rivals, Owen Reed, approached with a smirk. Quite the turnaround, Stone, he said smoothly. Last I heard, your wife was the one holding your books together. Garrett's smile stiffened. Ex-wife. And she was holding me back. Not together. Owen leaned closer. Funny thing about women like her. They fall quietly, but they rise loudly. You'll hear it when it happens. Garrett's face darkened. But before he could respond, Felicity pulled him away with a soft whisper. Ignore him. He's jealous. Evelyn clapped her hands sharply. Music, everyone. Enough business talk. Tonight we celebrate. The string quartet resumed. Laughter swelled again, but Garrett's eyes lingered on the flickering fire. Something in him uneasy, like a ghost, had brushed past. Camera pans to the mansion TV in the background, where the same lottery advertisement plays faintly again. The camera focuses on the numbers flashing on the screen. 0, 5, 12, 19, 23, 31, 45. Cut to Skye's tiny apartment. She pins those very numbers on the fridge, the same numbers her father once played every year. They toasted to victory, certain they'd buried her forever. But the universe had already chosen its winner, and her name was still Skye. The diner was nearly empty when Skye Bennett finished her late shift. The neon sign outside buzzed faintly, flickering between red and gold. Her feet ached, her back throbbed, and her apron smelled faintly of burnt oil, but her heart was strangely calm. The night air was crisp, filled with the smell of rain-soaked asphalt. Skye tightened her coat and stepped out, her purse slung over one shoulder. For the first time in months, she didn't walk with her head down. She had just come from Mr. Weston's office earlier that day, and the news still echoed in her mind. $1.5 million. It wasn't in her hands yet, but it was real. It meant she could breathe again. Across the street, a billboard glowed. Saturday, lottery jackpot. $200 million. One ticket could change everything. Skye paused under the glow, the wind tugging gently at her hair. She almost laughed. $200 million? Imagine that. Inside the convenience store below the sign, a line of customers formed near the counter. One old woman smiled as she walked out, clutching her ticket like it was made of gold. Skye hesitated, then stepped inside. As she reached the counter, her eyes fell on the rows of ticket slips. The cashier, a cheerful man with laugh lines, grinned. Lucky night, huh? Everyone's trying their shot. Skye smiled softly. I don't usually play. Maybe you should, he said. Jackpot like this doesn't come twice. She picked up a slip, but before marking anything, she froze. Her mind drifted back in time to her father's desk, old coffee stains on the wood, and him sitting there with a gentle smile. He'd hand her a pen every Saturday. Same numbers, sweetheart. They remind me of you and your mother. She'd giggle, trying to read them. Why always the same ones, Daddy? He'd wink. Because luck isn't random. It remembers who deserves it. Skye whispered the numbers to herself. 0, 5, 12, 19, 23, 31, 45. Her hands trembled slightly as she wrote them down. The moment felt strangely spiritual, like crossing paths with a memory too perfect to be coincidence. She handed the slip to the cashier. Just one ticket, she said. He grinned. People say that's all it takes. As he printed it, the sound of the machine seemed louder than usual, mechanical, rhythmic, final. Skye folded the ticket gently and slipped it into her Bible, the same one she kept beside her father's old letter. Keep it safe, the man called after her. Skye turned and smiled. Always. On her way home, the rain started again. She covered her head with her jacket and ran across the empty street. When she reached the apartment, Martha Lane, her landlady, stood by the stairs holding her mail. Busy night? Martha asked kindly. Always. Skye smiled faintly, catching her breath. You're glowing, girl. Did something good happen? Skye laughed softly. Maybe something about to. Upstairs, she tucked the children into bed. Lily mumbled sleepily, Mommy, are we rich yet? Skye brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face. Not yet, baby, but soon. The apartment was quiet, except for the ticking clock. Skye sat on the couch, the lottery ticket resting on her Bible. She stared at it, the numbers glowing faintly under the lamplight. Her father's voice echoed again in her mind. Numbers aren't luck, Skye. They're memories. Her eyelids grew heavy. She placed the ticket carefully under the couch cushion for safekeeping and drifted into sleep. Thunder rumbled outside. A window rattled. The camera pans down, a slow, tense zoom, revealing the edge of the ticket, slipping out from under the cushion, fluttering gently onto the floor. In the morning light, Sam's small feet shuffle across the rug as he plays with his toy car. He accidentally kicks the ticket, and it slides out of sight under the couch leg. Skye, unaware, hums softly in the kitchen, sunlight spilling across her face. She didn't know it yet, but the slip of paper lying under her couch held not just numbers, but a doorway to destiny, a fortune that would rewrite every name that ever called her worthless. It had been almost a week since Skye Bennett bought that lottery ticket. Life was slowly finding rhythm again. The children laughed more. The room didn't feel as small anymore. Even the morning sunlight through the cracked window seemed warmer, almost forgiving. Skye sat at the kitchen table, pen in hand, budgeting the little she had left. The sound of Lily and Sam playing outside brought a faint smile to her face. For the first time in months. Her heart didn't feel like it was drowning. Then, a knock at the door. It wasn't Martha's gentle knock. It was sharper, familiar. Skye froze, pen hovering midair. When she opened the door, the world she'd been rebuilding in silence shattered in one heartbeat. Standing there in an expensive gray suit and that same smug confidence she once mistook for love, was Garrett Stone. He looked her up and down, half smiling. You still keep this place clean, I see. Skye's hand tightened around the doorframe. What are you doing here? Relax, he said lightly, stepping inside without permission. I just wanted to check on you and the kids. Her voice went cold. You kicked us out, remember? Garrett gave a small laugh. Come on, Skye. Don't make this dramatic. Things got messy. Business stress. My mother's pressure. She cut him off. You mean Felicity's pressure. That name landed like a slap. His jaw tensed. Felicity has nothing to do with this. I came because I care about my children. Skye folded her arms. You cared enough to throw them into the street. For a moment, Garrett said nothing. His eyes darted around the rented room. The second-hand furniture, the drawings on the wall, the chipped mug by the sink. He frowned like the sight offended him. This is where you live now, he asked. Skye, this isn't you. She straightened. It is now. Garrett exhaled, stepping closer. Listen, my company's doing well again. Maybe I can help you. We could get you a decent apartment. A little money for the kids. You don't need to live like this. Skye's laugh was hollow. You think I'd take your pity after what you did? He smirked. You always had pride. I'll give you that. But pride doesn't pay bills. Her voice sharpened. Neither does betrayal. From the corner of the room, Lily appeared, clutching her doll. Confusion in her small voice. Daddy? Garrett's facade cracked for just a second. He crouched, forcing a smile. Hey, sweetheart. But Lily didn't move closer. Mommy said, you're busy with your new family. Skye's heart twisted. Garrett rose, trying to recover his composure. Skye, stop poisoning their minds. She shot back, voice low and fierce. I don't need to. You did that yourself. He sighed, rubbing his temple like he was the victim. "You're still impossible." Skye looked him dead in the eye. "And you're still hollow." Garrett blinked, stunned. The woman before him wasn't the one he humiliated a year ago. She wasn't pleading anymore. She was anchored. He reached into his briefcase suddenly, pulling out papers. "These are documents from our past accounts. There are things I need you to sign for closure." She glanced at them and pushed them back. "No. You haven't even read them yet." "I said no." Garrett's jaw tightened. "You'll regret this." Skye stepped closer, voice calm but dangerous. "I already did once. Never again." He left without another word, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. Skye stood motionless, the echo of his footsteps fading. Then she sank slowly onto the couch, exhaling shakily. Lily ran to her, wrapping tiny arms around her waist. "Mommy, he looked angry." Skye whispered, stroking her hair. "Let him be angry. It means he's still afraid." Sam peeked from the hallway. "Afraid of what, Mommy?" Skye smiled faintly. "Of what he threw away." She reached down to pick up a crumpled paper Garrett had dropped near the couch. As she bent, her fingers brushed something beneath the sofa leg. Dusty, thin, familiar. Her breath caught. She pulled it out slowly. The lottery ticket. It was creased, dirt-stained, but still readable. Her heart started pounding. She stared at the numbers, her father's numbers glowing faintly under the lamplight. He came to remind her of what she lost, but left her with what would soon change everything. Skye whispered to herself, voice trembling, "Daddy, maybe this is it." The house was still when Skye Bennett found the ticket. She sat on the floor, heart hammering, staring at the faded slip in her trembling hands. It looked worthless, wrinkled, smudged, barely legible. But those numbers, those were his numbers. 05, 12, 19, 23, 31, 45. Her father's voice echoed in her head. "Numbers aren't luck, Skye. They're memories." Lily tugged at her sleeve, blinking sleepily. "Mommy, what's that?" Skye forced a shaky smile. "Maybe something special." Sam yawned. "Can it buy pancakes?" She laughed through tears. "Maybe a lot more than pancakes, sweetheart." She stood up abruptly, adrenaline surging. "Get your coats." "Where are we going?" Lily asked. Skye's eyes glimmered with purpose. "To see if your grandpa's memory still works miracles." Rain tapped on the windshield as Skye drove through the quiet streets toward the city. Her old car coughed with every turn, but her determination drowned out every sound. She clutched the ticket in one hand, whispering to herself like a prayer, "Please, just once, let something go right." The neon sign of the Lottery Commission office glowed ahead, opened 24 hours. Inside, the room was small, fluorescent, sterile. A tired clerk looked up from his monitor. "Ma'am, the claiming counter closed for big prizes, but if you'd like, I can check it for you." Skye hesitated, heart pounding. "Please, just check it." He scanned the ticket lazily, glancing back at the monitor, then froze. His brows lifted. Ma'am, one moment." Skye's pulse spiked. "What, is something wrong?" He didn't answer. He pressed a button on his desk. Another employee rushed over, whispering something quickly. Finally, the first clerk turned back, voice trembling. "Ma'am, could I ask your name?" "Skye Bennett." He swallowed hard, hands shaking now. "Mrs. Stone, this ticket, it's the winning ticket." The words didn't land at first. Skye blinked, disoriented. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" He repeated slowly, his voice awed this time. "You've won the $200 million jackpot." For a long, fragile moment, Skye just stared. Then she laughed, small at first, then uncontrollable, trembling, breathless. The clerk smiled nervously. "Ma'am." Skye pressed a hand to her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. Her knees nearly gave out. "He did it," she whispered. "My father, he did it." The staff surrounded her, cameras rolling, flashes bursting like fireworks. Helen Wells, the lottery commissioner, stepped forward with a worn smile. "Congratulations, Mrs. Stone. You're now $200 million richer." Skye covered her face, laughing and crying at once. "No, not richer, just free." Outside, she stood beneath the drizzle, clutching the official envelope containing her confirmation. The rain felt different now, cleansing, not cold. Lily looked up, eyes wide. "Mommy, did we really win?" Skye knelt, cupping her daughter's face. "Yes, baby, we really did." Sam bounced beside her. "So we can buy pancakes?" Skye laughed through her tears. "We can buy every pancake." A small crowd formed outside the office, strangers cheering, reporters shouting questions. Skye shielded her kids and smiled softly. "I don't need to tell the world yet," she whispered. "Not until they see me walk into it." Hours later, the morning news flashed across every screen. 200 million jackpot winner identified. Local woman from Westwood claims prize. At the Stone estate, Evelyn sipped her tea until the headline caught her eye. Her cup froze mid-air. Garrett, across from her, glanced up, pale, stunned. The photo on the screen was unmistakable. Skye, radiant, standing with her children, tears glistening on her cheeks. The reporter's voice echoed. After years of hardship, single mother Skye Bennett's story of perseverance has captured hearts nationwide. Felicity's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered. Evelyn gasped. "That can't be." But Garrett was already on his feet, whispering in disbelief. "Skye." At the small apartment, Skye stood by the window, watching dawn break, a light gilding her face in gold. Her voice was calm, almost reverent. "Let them see what happens when the woman they threw away starts to rise." She didn't just win money. She won power, and the ones who broke her were about to learn what losing really feels like. Morning sunlight streamed through clean white curtains, a luxury Skye Bennett had almost forgotten existed. The modest apartment had been replaced by a quiet, elegantly furnished townhouse on the city's north end. Everything about it spoke of rebirth. Soft beige walls, polished oak floors, sunlight dancing off glass. But Skye's favorite view was still the simplest. Lily and Sam, laughing over a stack of pancakes at the breakfast counter. The sound filled the air like healing. Sam held up his fork proudly. "Mommy, we finally got pancakes every day." Skye smiled, brushing his curls. "Yes, baby, every single day, and never because someone let us." Lily giggled. "You're happy now, Mommy?" Skye looked down at her children, her eyes glistening. "Yes, for the first time, I really am." But happiness for Skye never lasted long before the past came knocking. A knock at the door, loud, deliberate. Martha, now hired as her housekeeper, peeked through the peephole. Her face darkened. "Skye, you might want to see this yourself." Skye frowned, walking toward the door. When she opened it, time seemed to fold back on itself. Standing there in expensive suits and fake humility were Garrett and Evelyn Stone. Garrett smiled awkwardly, hands out as though they were old friends. "Skye, it's been a while." Evelyn forced a tremulous laugh. "We just wanted to see how you're doing. You've been in the news." Skye's face didn't move. "In the news?" Evelyn nodded, pretending warmth. "Such a surprise. A lottery winner. $200 million. You must be overwhelmed. Skye leaned against the doorframe, calm. I'm managing. Garrett's eyes darted around the hallway, his voice dropping. Skye, listen. We made mistakes. I made mistakes. But we were under so much pressure. I shouldn't have said those things. I shouldn't have. You shouldn't have what? Skye interrupted softly. Thrown you out. Called you worthless. He swallowed. I was stupid, and I regret it every day. Skye tilted her head, watching him carefully. Regret. The way she said it made his chest tighten. Evelyn stepped in quickly. We don't need to dwell on the past. What's important is family. Skye's lips curled into something between a smile and disbelief. Family? You mean the one that locked the gates and watched me walk into the street with 2 children? Evelyn flinched. I was protecting my son, and I was protecting his name. Skye said evenly. Funny how that name only matters when money's attached to it. Garrett's charm faltered. Skye, we could work together again. You always had business sense. Maybe you could invest in the company. Bring it back stronger for the kid's future. Skye turned slowly toward him, her tone razor-sharp, but polite. For the kid's future. You mean the kids you didn't ask about until I was worth $200 million. He stiffened. That's not fair. Skye smiled faintly. Neither was what you did, but we're even now. Garrett looked desperate. Skye, please, let's fix this. She studied him for a long moment, then stepped closer, her voice low and calm. I used to beg you to listen when I was poor. Now you beg me to forgive you when I'm rich. But here's the thing, Garrett. I don't hold grudges. His face brightened slightly until she added, I just keep receipts. Before either of them could respond, a third voice echoed from the hallway. Well, isn't this cozy? Felicity Shaw appeared, perfect makeup, icy smile, pretending innocence. I thought we could all talk, Garrett insisted. Skye's calm eyes flicked between them. Of course he did. Birds of a feather. Felicity's smirk faltered. You think you're better than us now? Skye's voice didn't rise. No, just freer. Garrett snapped. Felicity, stop. But Skye had already turned away. Martha, please show them out. Evelyn protested. Skye, wait. Skye glanced back, one last time. You waited a year to see me. You can wait forever to understand me. The door closed gently, not slammed, but its final click sounded louder than thunder. Inside the silent house, Skye sat at her desk, pulling out a small golden envelope marked confidential. The same one from Mr. Weston. Her father's final letter, she whispered. Time to finish what he started. They came to reclaim her, not knowing she was already planning to rewrite everything they owned. 2 weeks later, Skye Bennett sat in a bright studio, her posture calm, her voice measured, but her eyes burned with quiet purpose. Across from her sat Miles Vance, a journalist known for asking the questions that made CEOs sweat. Cameras surrounded them, lights blazing. Miles leaned forward. Skye, the world knows you as the woman who was kicked out by her husband and then won $200 million, but you've never spoken publicly about it until today. Why now? Skye smiled faintly. Because sometimes silence protects peace, and sometimes silence protects the guilty. The crew froze. The control room leaned in. This wasn't going to be just another sympathy interview. Miles adjusted his mic. So, you're saying there's more to the story? Skye looked directly into the camera. Much more. I wasn't just thrown out. I was humiliated, insulted, and stripped of everything I had built beside him. But the mistake they made was believing I had nothing left. Miles hesitated. You're talking about your ex-husband, Garrett Stone. Skye didn't blink. Yes, Garrett Stone. and everyone who stood behind him while I begged in the rain with my children. The studio went dead quiet. Even the sound of the camera shutter slowed. Miles, careful but curious, asked, "And how do you feel now that you've surpassed him?" Skye's tone softened. "I don't feel proud. I feel free. Money didn't save me. Truth did. I just learned that sometimes truth costs $200 million to afford." The crew exchanged glances. This was more than an interview. It was a reckoning broadcast live. Evelyn, Garrett, and Felicity sat in the living room, the TV flickering. Evelyn's voice trembled. She wouldn't dare." Felicity scoffed. "She's bluffing. She wants pity." But Garrett's face had gone pale. "No, she's too calm. She's not bluffing." On screen, Miles continued. "Skye, before we went live, you shared some documents with our team. Care to explain them to the audience?" Skye nodded gracefully. "Of course. Those are copies of financial records from a company I helped establish with my inheritance before marriage, Harper Solutions. When I married Garrett, he merged it with his business. What he never told investors was that 40% of his company's foundation came from my capital." Miles's eyes widened. "You're saying he built his empire with your money?" Skye smiled. "Not saying, Mr. Vance. Proving." She gestured toward the screen behind them, and the camera cut to images of documents, signatures, dated transfers, all labeled Harper Family Trust, Stone Holdings. A murmur rippled through the studio. Back at the mansion, Felicity's glass shattered on the floor. "Oh my God," Evelyn whispered. "She's destroying us." Garrett clenched his fists, eyes locked on the screen. "She's smarter than I thought." Miles turned back, astonished. So the woman they called worthless built the foundation of her husband's empire. Skye's voice was steady. "That's the irony of betrayal. It always forgets who made the throne before it sat down." Social media exploded. The clip spread across every platform in minutes. Skye Bennett's story. #Betrayal to billionaire. #Justice served. Miles concluded the interview, but Skye wasn't finished. "One last thing," she said softly, eyes never leaving the camera. "To every woman watching this who's been told she's nothing, remember, diamonds don't break under pressure. They're born from it." That night, Skye's words played on every news channel. Garrett's investors withdrew. Sponsors froze contracts. Evelyn's social circle turned cold. Felicity tried to call Garrett. He ignored her. When she tried again, his mother snapped. "We're finished. Because of you, because of her." At Skye's foundation headquarters, Hope Lives Here, named after that faded flyer, volunteers answered calls from women across the country, thanking her for giving them courage. Chloe hugged her, whispering, "You didn't just win a jackpot, Skye. You changed the game." Skye smiled quietly. "No, I'm just returning everything they stole." As she left the office that evening, her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "You've said enough on camera. Now come to the gala this Saturday if you want to end this properly. G.S." Skye stared at it for a long time, then slipped the phone into her purse. Her reflection in the glass door showed not fear, but focus. "Perfect," she murmured. "Let's end it where it began." They thought they could silence her story, but she was never speaking for herself anymore. She was speaking for every woman who had ever been thrown away and learned how to rise. The world had barely caught its breath from Skye Bennett's viral interview before the next storm hit. By morning, headlines blared across every network. Garrett Stone files lawsuit against ex-wife, claims rights to lottery fortune. From humiliation to courtroom showdown, the $200 million battle begins. Skye watched it all in silence from her office window. The city skyline, stretching beyond her reflection. Chloe stormed in, waving her phone. "He's suing you, Skye. He's actually suing you for your winnings." Skye's voice was calm. Her children watched from the car window as she walked up the courthouse steps. Across the plaza, Garrett Stone and his attorney stood giving a statement to the press. "She used my last name to buy that ticket," Garrett said smoothly. "Technically, that makes it joint property. I only want what's rightfully mine." The crowd murmured, some sympathetic, most disgusted. Inside the courtroom buzzed with tension. Judge Davies, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, presided. "Mr. Stone," she said firmly, "you're claiming the lottery winnings belong partly to you." Garrett nodded confidently. "Yes, Your Honor. Skye and I were still legally married at the time of purchase. She used funds we once shared." Skye's attorney, Mr. Weston, rose slowly, the same man who had once handled her father's estate. "Your Honor," he said, "we will show evidence proving that every cent Skye used to purchase that ticket came from her independent earnings, none from her husband. Moreover, the Harper Trust, her father's estate, legally insulated all her assets, even during marriage." Garrett smirked. "Convenient story." Weston smiled. "Not a story, a legacy." Garrett's lawyer tried to corner Skye during questioning. "Mrs. Stone, did you or did you not share finances with your husband before your separation?" Skye met his gaze. "Yes, until the day he closed every account in his name and left me with nothing." A ripple went through the courtroom. Garrett shifted uncomfortably. Skye continued, her voice steady, but her eyes fierce. "I didn't need his money then, and I don't need it now. My father left me something he could never buy, protection from greed." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Protection?" Weston stepped forward, handing her a document sealed with an embossed crest. "Your Honor, this is a clause from the Harper Trust established in 1998. It states that any financial gains Skye achieves post-marriage, including inheritances, investments, or winnings, remain solely hers under federal and state law. Her father anticipated exploitation." Garrett's attorney blinked. That's impossible to enforce." Weston's calm deepened. "Except it's already been tested in court twice, both times upheld." The judge examined the paper, nodding slowly. "I see no legal grounds for Mr. Stone's claim." Garrett stood abruptly. "This isn't over. She owes me everything I built." Skye rose, her voice soft but carrying through the room. "You built nothing, Garrett. You borrowed from me, from my love, from my silence. And this," she gestured to the courtroom, "this is your receipt." He froze as the gallery erupted in whispers. Judge Davies banged her gavel. "Case dismissed. Mrs. Stone retains full ownership of her winnings." As Garrett stormed out, reporters swarmed. Skye walked past him slowly, calm as sunlight. "Skye," a journalist called. "Any comment?" She turned briefly, her voice serene. "Yes, never mistake kindness for weakness. They may look the same until tested." Outside, flashbulbs flared. Chloe hugged her tightly. "You did it." Skye exhaled deeply, finally smiling. "No, justice did." As she got into her car, a folded card waited on the seat, gold-edged, elegant. It read, "Invitation, Stone Holdings Annual Gala, hosted by Garrett Stone and Associates. Dress code, redemption, or ruin." Skye's reflection shimmered in the glass window, calm but eyes ablaze. He tried to take her peace in court. Now she would take his pride in public. The chandeliers glimmered like constellations above the prestige Grand Hall. The same hall where a year earlier Garrett Stone had laughed as he tore his wife's dignity to shreds. Tonight the world's elite gathered again. Polished shoes, glittering gowns, glasses filled with champagne, and whispers sharper than diamonds. But this time, The whispers were different. This time, they were about her. "That's Skye Bennett, right? The $200 million winner? She looks like she walked out of a movie." And she did. Skye stepped through the glass doors, radiant in a flowing white silk gown that shimmered under the chandelier light. Every head turned, every camera followed. Her calm smile carried no bitterness, just power wrapped in elegance. Beside her walked Mr. Weston, her father's old lawyer, and Chloe, her friend and now personal advisor. The trio moved like quiet thunder. No fanfare, no announcement, just presence. Across the hall, Garrett froze mid-conversation. His champagne flute slipped slightly in his hand. Evelyn Stone was the first to speak, her voice low and stunned. "She came." Felicity Shaw forced a laugh. "So what? She's here for attention." But Garrett knew better. Skye didn't chase attention. She commanded it. Garrett composed himself and walked toward her, mask of charm intact. "Skye, you look incredible." Skye turned slightly, meeting his eyes with calm precision. "I usually do. You just never noticed." The crowd's hush deepened. Garrett chuckled nervously. "You didn't have to come tonight." "I did," she replied softly, "to watch something end." He blinked. "End?" Before he could ask further, Miles Vance, the journalist who'd interviewed her, appeared on stage as host. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "tonight we celebrate new beginnings, courage, and transformation." Our keynote speaker, a woman who reminds us that grace under fire can change everything, Mrs. Skye Bennett. The crowd erupted in applause. Garrett's face went pale. Skye walked up the stage slowly, her heels clicking like echoes of justice. She stood under the chandelier's golden light, facing the same world that once watched her break. "Exactly 1 year ago," she began, her voice calm and steady, "I was standing outside this very building, not as a guest, but as a woman discarded by the people she trusted most." Silence blanketed the room. "I was told I was worthless, that I was a burden, that I had no value without someone else's name." Her gaze swept over the crowd, landing briefly on Garrett and Evelyn. "But what they didn't know," she continued, "is that a woman doesn't need to be kept to rise. She just needs to be released." Murmurs rippled. A few guests even nodded through tears. Skye smiled faintly. "I didn't win $200 million by chance. I won it because I refused to stop believing that my story wasn't over. Every betrayal, every humiliation, every locked gate, all it did was sharpen my resolve." She paused, the audience hanging on her every word. "So tonight, I dedicate my foundation. We only need memory." Thunderous applause filled the hall. Even those who once gossiped about her stood in awe. As she stepped down, Garrett approached her once more, eyes wet, voice trembling. "Skye, please, I was wrong. I see it now. You were everything." She looked at him quietly, almost tenderly. "No, Garrett, I was something. You just didn't know how to value it." He reached for her hand. "Can we start again?" Skye withdrew gently. "You had your chance. Tonight isn't about you. It's about every woman you underestimated." Then, with soft finality, she turned to walk away. Evelyn whispered in disbelief, "She's destroying us." Chloe smiled behind Skye. "No, she's freeing herself." As Skye exited the hall, flashbulbs exploded around her, lighting her path like victory fireworks. She paused at the door, looking back one last time, the same chandelier glowing above the people who once watched her fall. Her voice was calm, barely audible, full circle. In the room where her tears once fell, she left behind only light. But her story wasn't over yet. Because true victory isn't measured in applause. It's measured in what you leave behind.